think it's only fitting to start this episode off just with a big, deep sigh, because, oh man.
Oh, you are teeing this up so good. Enzo, to me, looks like a more agile, basically a young Chess Fabregas.
It's a Rolls Royce, man. Gotta sell it.
Messi is the Jorginho of international football. That was a dumb take.
The flag stays down!
Welcome to another episode of the Flag Stays Down podcast, Land Eggs edition. Boys, happy Easter, and happy Easter to everyone out there listening. For those who celebrate, you got a full house tonight. Myself, Andy, we got Parker, we got Matt. Matt, how you doing?
Not too bad. It was a very interesting end to my work week, but that's a conversation for another time. But no, other than that, it's been a good weekend. Obviously celebrated Easter with my family. Met up with good friends of ours. So did the church thing before, went over to my parents for Easter, and just came back home and just hanging out. And at this time right now, little man still has not gone to bed, and I can hear him. So things are going real well on this Sunday night. But yeah, it's good to be able to pod with you boys. Parks, how was Easter for you? What did you get up to?
I've realized that, and I don't know if this is the new Colorado thing for me or just me in general, but like holidays are just an excuse for me to spend time in the kitchen. So I just like to make a shit ton of food. It just brings me joy, and it's just the two of us, and so we don't, need to have 5-6 dishes on Thanksgiving or Easter or Christmas, whatever. But I just enjoy it. It's just fun for me to do. So I smoked a ham for the first time, which turned out really well and quite enjoyable. And now we've got 15.9 pounds of ham remaining because I started with 16. I mean, when you go to the grocery store, boys, and you see a 16-pound ham and it's $21, I'm like, well, shit, why not? I mean, freezers work. I've got a big industrial freezer outside that can hold it, and I was like, you might as well. I'll bag it up and I'll eat off of it for a while. So that's what I got up to today. Otherwise, it's been a pretty relaxing weekend, just kind of hanging out, watching college basketball. I had a whole lot of hope for my bracket going into the Elite Eight, where I had 6 of 8 right, and then or the prospects of 6 of 8 right, and then everything kind of crumbled, and my chaotic picks did not pan out for the Final Four. But I enjoyed cheering for chaos and March Madness, and it's kind of fun to just pick underdogs because then you can root for them. It's just hard when they go out first round. But I had Clemson going to my Final Four, so it was kind of fun to cheer for them. I knew nothing about them or the situation or anything else. I'm not going to pretend like I did. Just fun to pick a team and kind of go for it and cheer for them along the way. So it's been a fun weekend. The Chelsea draw, bit of a damper, obviously, but they did not lay an egg. Was that an Easter pun, Collins, or was that a Chelsea pun? Because they did not lay an egg. They got 1 point, not a good point, which we'll get into, but they got a point. Collins, how are you, man?
I'm fine. I'm okay. We'll say it's been a weekend. Matt came over for a little bit, trying to finally fix our sink. Gotta postpone that, and I don't know. It's been good otherwise. Easter today, I got to see family. Went out with my parents last night, and Kind Oasis here in Milwaukee finally has my seltzers back in stock, so stocked up on those. Just having a very, very calm and chill night. So, all in all, pretty good. But like you said, that draw was kind of a buzzkill, we'll say. Just to recap it, Chelsea go up 1-0 in the first half, courtesy of Cole Palmer. Burnley equalize right out the gate, 47th minute, courtesy of Josh Cullen. Cole Palmer scores again, only for us to be foiled and point at home. Dara O'Shea scoring in the 81st minute for Burnley. So, Matt, we'll start with you because I know you just finished watching the match. What are your initial reactions?
Classic Chelsea. I was trying to think about it as I'm watching the game, and I'm like, okay, we talk about, we've seen the script before and things like that. Throughout the whole match, it just never seemed like we had any control. Even when Burnley was down to 10, yeah, we had possession, but they were still getting their chances. They did early on too. And even though they didn't have many chances, they clearly took their chances. We had more chances than we probably have ever had in a game this season. And once again, we still could not finish those chances. We were on the fortunate side of a penalty, which doesn't happen often, but we were on what I would think a fortunate side. Palmer just setting his nuts just right on everybody's forehead and just saying, I'm gonna do this, enjoy. And then that link up play with Raz, it was beautiful to watch. It was a really good finish. But I mean, the Cullen goal, something out of nothing. That O'Shea goal, there's a lot of blame to go around on that one. The defending, the marking, why do you have Noni and then Enzo picking up on a center back? I don't fully understand that. Jordy, obviously, he didn't know what he wanted to do, if he wanted to grab it or try and push it out. I think he was caught in two minds. It's unfortunate to see, but I think it kind of sums up. It was the perfect way to kind of sum up the performance. It literally slipped right through our hands. Again, it's just the classic thing, right? Charity FC. They go down to 10. They end up scoring 2 with 10 men. And of course, Cullen gets his first ever Premier League goal against us. So, it's just kind of written that way. But all in all, I mean, it sucks coming back from international break. But when you have a large team, most of whom are on the injured list, and the ones that are playing are on international duty with their respective nations. So they're still playing. It's a lot, right? And we don't have a ton of rotation. Especially if you look at our midfield and our defense, there's not a ton of rotation available to us right now. And a lot of those guys are playing international too, so they don't really get a break. And it just seemed like we were a team that was constantly like a step behind in a lot of things throughout the entire 90.
What?
Matt, I feel like you run our Twitter account. All of your takes, I'm reading through my tweets from the weekend, and just bang, 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 bang. Parker, you called me out on one, and I'll quote it here: penalty, down to 10, and down a manager. Prime for Chelsea to blow this. We've read the script. We know. I know. And sure as shit. Man, yeah, written in the stars. Giving up a first Premier League goal, conceding late due to just, I don't know. I don't even know, where the blame lies in the equalizer. But we are 2 step forwards, 1 step back, FC, or as friend of the pod, Scott, says 2 steps forward, 1.96 steps back. It was all just so predictable, and I'm sure we'll get into it later, but I think there's a common denominator in all of this here, and I think he's on the touchline.
I deserve that that call out. I to be fair, all I wanted you to have was some faith, right? I wanted you to be more positive, and the jaded takes unfortunately come true, right? They have their way of showing up in this team, and this team this year has been consistently inconsistent. That's just the way we've been in a lot of these matches that where it's 2-2 and then we go on to win 4-2. That was the Leicester match, and some of these games are 2-2 and 2-2. Some of them are 2-2, we lose 3-2. Just a ridiculous, call it the goalie comes up on a corner kick. Something crazy happens. It just, this team is ripe for it. I think there's a lot of blame to go around as well. Unfortunately, I don't believe as much of it falls on the manager's shoulders. When I look at an XG, which I buy heavily into, when I look at an XG of 4.1 and we put in 2, not a manager problem. And when I look at a XG on the other side of almost 2, that's our defense. That's a lot of our defenders' problems. And so errors, silly things, lack of leadership, a lot of things going on here. And you know what? I think Maurizio gets a fair bit of that blame too. I'm not saying he's infallible. I'm not saying he's perfect. I just call it 25% of the blame and not 80 or 90. Like it's shared blame all around. We're not good enough. This team has done this game a lot this year. It's just with varied results. And so still positives though, still things to take out of it. I mean, I don't know how much of this team turns over into next year or into the future. If we have a sort of a winning side going forward, but I mean, Cole Palmer is that guy. I saw a lot of improvement out of Nico Jackson. I saw a lot of improvement out of Mikhail Mudryk. So like, I didn't really, it's funny. The players that a lot of people talk about, like Enzo, Caicedo, Gallagher, they were not spectacular on Saturday. And the other 3 were great from what I saw. I know Nico didn't finish his chances, but he's young and he was in the right spot for a lot of them. And I liked what I saw out of Nico in general, minus the goal, which of course, striker position, you get judged on, do you score goals? Yes, no, it's very binary, but I try to evaluate past that stat just because it's not the only way for me to evaluate him. So, but the first, call it 20 minutes of this game was very telling to me. We were sleepy. We were not good. We were not ready. We didn't come out. And I know most people are just going to chalk it up to international duty, but that's where I think like mentality and management needs to like get our players ready. That's where I do place blame. And that's where I do kind of look for our manager to get our folks game ready and put out a squad to compete, especially against a team like Burnley, who's, scrapping and clawing for points. And I know they're in fight and flight mode right now, but we still are good enough to bury a team like that. So disappointing. I'm not trying to make excuses for the team, just still very disappointing and not the result we wanted, but still some positives that come out of it for me. So it's not all terribly written off.
So the international break, common theme with both of what you guys said. We're not the only team that deals with the international break. There are plenty of clubs that have more players going out internationally. But is there something different at Chelsea in regards to the international break? Is it just a different flux of where guys are going, or is it? I think it's training on the way back. Like, what do you think is the issue? Because it always does seem to be right off the break we tend to struggle.
For me, it's a couple things. Where they go, I think does matter. Like coming back from Ecuador or Argentina is different than coming back from England. Like you're not really coming back from much. That's a, I don't know, 12-hour flight, 14-hour flight. Like those do take, and it's time zones too, right? So it's not easy. Knowing what it feels like to go on a work trip where you fly overnight and then have to work that day in London, like it's not easy. And I know I don't do what they do, but still it can be taxing. So I think that's a factor of it. I think the injuries are a factor of it. Matt, you pointed that out, where most of our players are playing internationally and we don't have depth right now to say otherwise. Cole didn't get used. He got called up, but he didn't play any minutes. But like Mudryk did and a bunch of others did. I was looking through our bench though, Collins. And this goes into like some of the defense of why Raheem Sterling got minutes when I don't think he deserves to play minutes. We are so not deep right now. Our bench is sparse. Like Madueke, Sterling, Gilchrist, Silva, Cesare, Bentonelli, Washington, and then two guys that I can't pronounce. I've never heard of. We are not very deep. And so those guys aren't ready to play and take anyone else's spots right now either. So I think it's a combination of a bunch of things, but we don't have that depth today where I think other squads do.
The other thing to kind of compound onto that is these guys, it's not like they're going in fresh to international break either, right? If we look at it from like the opposite, if you look at our players that are going off and playing internationally, they have not had a break with this club because they haven't been able to have a break with this club. So these guys aren't even coming into their international teams fresh, and they still have to travel. And a lot of them have to play major minutes. And then you add, like I said, then you have the travel there, back. And keep in mind, just because they're, they may be traveling to Ecuador to play, but they might actually be playing somewhere else entirely. Like there's more travel than just going back to, whatever country. Like it's all over the place. So I think that also that has to weigh into that whole thing. But I think it's the fact that these guys, they don't have a break. We can't have them have a break. We don't have anybody else. I think that makes it very tough. You have to play who's out there. I'm fine with the lineup. Like I have no issues with the lineup that was put out there, right? This is a team that we should have beat, and we showed them the right respect by playing a starting lineup. I don't know what else you can do in that regard.
The thing is, though, that there is depth. I mean, we are a bottom of the mid-table club at this point, or mid-table, I guess, constantly stuck 10th or 11th. You don't need world-class players backing up world-class players, because what you have out on the pitch is not playing it like world-class. So Newcastle have all kinds of injury problems, brought in PL2 players, brought in academy players. Newcastle has done the same thing. What's to prevent Cesare Cassette, Jimmy Turainen, Leo Castledine, any of these guys, any of these PL2 midfielders from taking 60 minutes, 45 minutes, 30 minutes, something away from Caicedo or Enzo to give them that chance to recover, especially because the South Americans usually play that extra day of international friendlies. And then you add the additional day of coming back and, all of that. We're playing a bottom of the table club here in Burnley. This is the time to start a Cassette in midfield for Enzo or for Caicedo. I think it's a lot of excuses. I think that this is exactly what we saw out of Potter towards the end, where it was, these are my guys, I'm sticking with them. They can suck all game, every game, or they can struggle, they can be tired, but these are the guys that I'm going to bank on.
I hear you. I just don't think he's had a lot of optionality, or at least the optionality that he should have at his disposal, where if Lavia is competing for a spot and he's firing and Noni's firing and we've got some options to play people, like we don't have anyone that's in form that we can sort of give up spots to. So like, I hear you. The only thing is like, if you start Cassette and say you start a whole different midfield, right? And say we go get beat by Burnley, then everyone's coming after his neck also. We had these guys available. We had Caicedo, we had Fernandez available to us. They made the trip back and they didn't play. What's going on? We lost 3-2. Like, if it doesn't work, you're also screwed. So like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Like, we played what I think most people would agree was the right decision. We played the right guys and didn't get the result. It's a catch-22.
And I don't disagree with you there, but yeah, you know, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. But this would have been the time, and I think most Chelsea fans are smart enough to realize that Enzo has played every single minute of every single game ever in the last 3 years or 2 years, or, you know, whatever it happens to be. Caicedo is similar. I think he's got the second or third most minutes on the team right now. These guys need breaks, and I think people can see that out on the pitch. There would have been an understanding, especially with Burnley being on the docket here, of, oh, okay, one of those two is on the bench. They're in the 18, they're on the bench. The other one's starting. But Cassette's out there. Tarainen is out there. You know, just really anybody out there. I think there would have been some understanding of that, as opposed to, you know, oh, burn it down. What the fuck is he doing?
And if we win 4-1, then no one's talking about it.
Right.
I wouldn't argue your point, Collins, because we've seen Chelsea fandom. They will freak out over the smallest thing. So I don't think there would be a lot of understanding in that scenario, but I get your point. I see what you're saying. The issue that I would have would be for a lot of these young guys. Cassette, he was probably the exception, but some of these other guys, I'll take a 70% Enzo or a 70% Caicedo over 100% like these young academy guys. And I think a lot of Chelsea fans would also probably see it that way too. Like, I think the gap between what we have and what's available to us, at least in this match, right? I'm not saying as a whole, but just in this match, there's such a significant gap there. I think it's hard to even justify that. Like, Parker, to your point, if they're available, they're available. Like, go ahead. Or if they say, no, I'm not ready to go, okay, fine, then you're not ready to go. But that was the decision, is they were good to go, play them.
You know who would have been perfect for this match, Collins, is Carney Chukwuemeka. Like, it would have been phenomenal. Guess what? Injury report before the match, right? Like, that's been the story of our season. It's so unfortunate. A guy who played relatively consistently, got hurt, came back, played again, looked good when he came back in, and then could have gotten the start. And to be fair, like, I would not have, if I saw the lineup that morning and saw Cassette's name in there, I would not have been mad about it. I would have been like, sweet, like, let's roll. If it was a starting 10 plus Cassette, I would have been like, awesome, let's roll with this. Like, I would not have hated it. I would have understood it. Most people would. I think you can't have a whole new midfield in there. I think that's where you start to, like, you know, lose a little bit of it, and you don't give Burnley the respect that they would have commanded. So I would have been fine with that if that was the case. Especially to your point, like, I know our guys need some rest. I also know our guys need time to gel. This is where I get torn in two halves.
Well, all right. So talking about Carney there and transitioning to the injuries, you know, fatigue, I think, plays a role in a lot of these injuries. But there is kind of a pattern emerging where players out long term, maybe 4, 5, 6 weeks, is brought back, plays 30 minutes. We find out 3 days later that he injured himself in that match. Are we bringing back players too early? I mean, I hate even the idea of that because we have so many players out for months and months and months at a time. But that seems to be a pretty common trend. I can think of 3 off the top of my head that's happened to already this year.
I know, at least from what I recall, I know Poch's training style is a little bit more on the aggressive side. And that's just going back from when he was with Tottenham. I know that was always kind of the issue, is they would be great for 85% of the season, and then they would just run out of steam at the end. And the training is, again, it's more on the aggressive side. I don't think it's Antonio Conte worthy, but it's on the aggressive side. That's just the way that it is. I don't think we're bringing players back too early. If you look at how long these players have been out, Lavi is out for the entire season and he played a half hour. I don't think that's bringing him back too soon.
Did he play?
He played for a half hour in the Palace match, right?
Yep, got 27 minutes in that match,
Yeah.
coming back from injury.
Which he was out for, what, 4 months?
4 months.
So I don't think we're not giving them enough time. I really don't. I don't know what's happening, but
Well, look at Nkunku. Same thing with Nkunku. Comes back, gets injured the exact same leg. What, 3, 4 weeks later?
right. But again, how long was he out for? He was out for what, 2 months? His second time. His second time he was out for like another 2 months. He was out for 3 months to start, came back, then out for another 2. Like, and having dealt with MCL stuff, 3 months or even 2 months is a long time to rehab it. Like, that's ample time. I don't know what's happening. But I don't think it's the fact that we're bringing them back too early. Most of these guys that are out injured have played half the year. And I don't think it's because they were injured before, came back, they got injured again. Okay, but they were out for extended periods of time. It's not like we're telling somebody, hey, you have a sprained ankle, cool, we'll see you play next week. Like, we're not rushing anybody back. Reese hadn't played in what, damn near 3 months, and he was out for 2 months to begin with. Like, I don't think that's the case.
I agree with a lot of Matt said.
Well,
But
I'm going to bring this back to the Poch argument. Blame. This has now been a theme, as you mentioned, at Spurs. I don't know enough about his time at PSG, other than PSG probably doesn't need to train at all playing in Liga. But we're seeing it here too. Chelsea lead the league. Oh, I'm sorry, are second in the league in goals conceded in the last 10 minutes of a match. We've conceded 13 goals in minutes 81 through 90 this year. Only team with more is Sheffield United with 16. There's a conditioning issue there. He can run them into the ground and practice all he wants, but it's leading to injuries. It's leading to re-injuries. It's leading to fatigue, and then he doesn't rotate his lineup. There needs to be some kind of give and take there. You can't go 110% 100% of the time.
It reminds me of the Kobe Bryant commercial. Like, how many records can my records break? More records. Yes, you can't go 100% of the time, all the time. Like, conceding though in the late means that they're not up to condition to me. Like, that they need this. And I know that was the sort of the rumor for the past 3.5-ish years has been like, the players run the team and you can't really tell them to do it differently. The players kind of control what's going on, and there's not a lot of discipline going on. And so, like, if you have someone that's just a player coach or a player manager, like Graham Potter, they take advantage of it. If you have someone who's a little bit more of a hard ass, they're not used to it. Like, again, it just feels like you can't really win with when the mentality is kind of broken. And to answer the first question, I don't think we're bringing people back too early, but I don't think they're necessarily ready for full fitness yet. And so it's hard. Like, we've taken, I think, what has been more of a moderate approach to injuries, where it's like, we're not going to start you for the first month that you're back. We're going to, have you cameo in 25-minute chunks. If they're getting hurt in that, like, I don't know how else to do it, to be completely honest. And so it's a sucky situation. And I just feel, I don't know, man. I just don't know how to even like expand on the point. It just feels we've had issues that go back for a while. A lot has changed, and yet a lot of those issues still exist. So for me to pinpoint it on a new thing is you can't then even go back and improve why we had a lot of injuries under Potter, or why we had injuries under Lampard, or whoever. Then, like, feels like none of it really makes sense. But I can't tell you why Lavia has only featured for 25 minutes this year, and why Nkunku's been hurt this entire season, why Carney came back, and why Reece James. I have no idea. But if we're conceding late, that still tells me that our fitness isn't up to snuff, and that we probably do need to drill people harder. And the other thing to think about is we don't have Europe to compete with. So we're not playing. We used to not rest Enzo and play every third day or every fourth day. So, like, these guys are 20, 21, 22. Like, I feel like they can handle that to an extent. Like, they can go hard for extended periods of time and not get as many breaks. So why they can't, like, kind of baffles me.
All right. So fair point. But in regards to that conceding late, and especially in this one specifically, Parker, I know you had mentioned 25% on Poach, 75%, seemingly on everybody else. How are we assigning? Was there anything in particular? Was there tactics? Was there people out of position? What happened in this instance where we blew it late?
For the goal, or for just in general?
No,
because
however you want to take that question.
Yeah, because I mean, I feel like we should have scored 4. Like, we Raheem Sterling missed as wide open of a header as you can miss. Nico had a ball cross to him, hip height, that was well on the money. Mudryk had 6 shots blocked in the box. Like, I thought we should have, beat the piss out of him. So should have come down to that, to be honest. Assigning blame on the goal, Matt touched on it earlier. I think there was miscommunication in the box. I think there was some marking issues. I also don't think so. The match in whole for me was sloppy. That was my kind of takeaway word. We were sloppy and unorganized, and it showed later on when we couldn't win balls and kind of retain possession, and we conceded corners. Conceding corners to a late to a team that's down to 10 men, like, that's their only lifeline for scoring goals, which it should never have come to a corner kick. They shouldn't have gotten corner kicks late game against us, and they had more than one. Like, it wasn't their only shot at it. It wasn't just a complete smash and grab. They had opportunities, and they ended up taking one. So that's where the organization I thought really could have been better. So I mean, I blame Poch for getting our players ready, and I blame Poch for some of that late game management of you're up. I would like to see more of a defensive sub to come on, where I know we put on Gilchrist for gusto, because he kind of came up with a hammy. But throw Thiago Silva back there and play a back five. It just kind of solidifies some stuff up. We don't need Connor running around bartering into people as much as we do to just kind of shore everything else up. So that's where I assign his blame.
It's tough. Like, he picks the team sheet, go out and do it. He can't get out there and finish, the clear chances that we had, or because honestly, we probably should have had about 8. He can't go out there and finish those. It's hard because I feel like he's in a tough spot, because he either gets the amount of blame changes depending on the game, right? If we win 2-1, everything's fine. Everything's great in the world, right? It doesn't even come up. But as soon as there is a hiccup, because this is such a big club, then it looks bad, right? Like it always does. I don't know how much I would fully put on him. Yeah, you could put some game management stuff on him. I know we've questioned subs a lot. So yeah, but at the end of the day, we're not the ones coaching. We see it from our perspective. He's got obviously the best perspective out of anybody. So you just kind of have to roll with it at that point. We all want to see different things, but if you ask 10 different Chelsea fans, there will probably be 10 different answers, right? He can only make one. So I think that's a tough spot, but at the end of the day, he also is a manager, right? So to me, at least for this season, I would say like 35-ish%, maybe 40% would be on Poach. It's kind of where I'm leaning. I think a lot of it just has to do with the players and their mentality. And yeah, I know the manager is supposed to, try and encourage them and things like that. Potter was a sports psychologist, wasn't he? He was like a sports psychology major. Yeah, how'd that work out? Not great. Like, these players committed to playing here. They got paid a good amount of money to be here. They have to earn it. If not, sorry, sucks. See ya. Like it's really weird. I chalk up most of this just to the mentality of the team. One of the great indicators of that was when Connor got subbed off. He still had the armband on, and he gave it to Noni and told Noni who to go pass it to. And granted, I'm a huge fan of Connor. It's well documented. If I'm the captain, I'm going to go and give it over to the next person. The problem with that is, who is our other captain without Chilwell, without Reese, without Connor?
Or Silva.
It's a toss-up. Like, just for all intents and purposes, I thought Noni was going to slap it on. I would have been like, all right, fine. Who cares? It's just a weird thing right now. And I feel like the team is still, like, we're getting there, but it's still, we see these pockets of it is 11 individuals on the field and not a team. And when you see a team out there, it looks great. When you see the individuals kind of doing their own thing, that's when we start to have problems. But again, that's also the players. They got to want to buy into it. And if they don't, then life's going to be hell.
So, the defense is the one position group where I think we can compare to last year. The other ones have seen a lot of turnover in the last 18 months, midfield, forwards. The defense is largely unchanged. We have, in fact, the majority of the guys on this roster defensively were either here last year or are a new signing. Nobody was replaced necessarily. Colwell came back from loan and Axel Disasi was brought in. We have now, with 9 games to play, have conceded as many goals as we did last year. We are on pace to concede More goals than any Chelsea team since 1990. What changed in that defense? We had these injuries last year. You can't tell me that it's Reece James and Ben Chilwell being out. We missed them all last year. Malagusto has been an improvement over whatever we did at right back last year. And Cucurella / Colwill have been about as good as Cucurella / Christian Pulisic last year. And you look at the center backs, because really this year it's Disasi and Silva / whoever else is out there, Colwill. Whereas last year it was Badiashile and Silva. I'd say Disasi isn't, Disasi's not a bad player. Every time he's out there, at least me, I make a comment, he's looked good. He's looked solid. Thiago Silva is a step slower, but largely the same player that he was last year. So what happened with this defense? This is where I put a lot of the blame on the manager. There is something with the way he sets up the team, something tactically, whether it's zone versus man, or in this situation, we're doing X, in this situation, we're doing Y. There has to be something, because that is the only thing that has really changed from last year to this year is the manager. Graham Potter, Frank Lampard, Pochettino. So in terms of conceding all these goals late, I think it's part fatigue and it's part the way he lines up the team. I don't have a smart enough eye to say exactly what that is, but he has to be the difference if you look at the defense from last year to this year.
But our defense wasn't great last year either. Right? I hear you that we are on pace to concede more goals, which I understand. We're also scoring a lot more goals, right? So sort of how we're playing in totality is different, because we are on the offensive more, we are scoring more goals, we're getting more people forward, which is leading to us conceding more. So I think that's going to explain some of it. I think Badiashile is going to get a lot of the blame from me, at least since he's been back. And then it was sort of that Levi Colwill out of position for the first, call it, quarter of the year. Thiago Silva, I don't think it's just as easy as he's a step slower this year. I think Thiago Silva has kind of gone. He was the reason why our defense wasn't firing on all cylinders for the good part of the first half of our year, and I think our defense is better for him not being in it now. So I think that is a bigger change than you're giving it credit for in your speech there. And then I think it's just the lack of consistency. Reece James hasn't featured hardly at all. Ben Chilwell has featured hardly at all. Left back has seen countless rotations through it. We have Cucurella, and then we have Colwill, and then we have Chills for a game. Like it has been wickedly inconsistent. And so just the fact that we can't line up similarly, time over time there, and then beat it with a dead horse. It's just the injuries. I think the fact that Reece hasn't played hardly at all really does hurt us. I think if Badiashile was healthy all year, he would have been better, but he wasn't, and then he came back, and I think he's been subpar all year. I think he has not been good. And I think he's on a lot of people's sort of shit list of like, if AC Milan are interested in him, he gone. Like he needs to get out of here. And so I think that's the case. And then for Disasi, I like him 87% of the time. And then the 13% of the time I don't like him is conceding goals. Like he does have sort of I don't want to call it just like a mental hiccup or whatever, but like once every like 3 games, he's got like a sort of a critical error. It kind of reminds me, and you'll laugh at this, Matt, it kind of reminds me of those errors that Jorginho would cause that would lead to goals relatively consistently. Like he was ironclad for a lot of it, right? He would go games without doing it, and then he would do it, and it would cost us. It would cost us kind of dearly. And I'm not just looking at the wonder goal he scored a couple weeks ago. but he does have some just sort of mental kind of lapses that have led to goals. Hard to pinpoint it. To your point, Collins, I don't have that eye of being able to just completely dissect it. I do believe it is multifaceted. I do believe that there's 6 or 7 things going on, not just one. And I don't know if it's a bad thing that we're conceding at the rate that we are, because I feel like if we were scoring at the rate that we're supposed to be, it wouldn't be an issue. That's kind of the biggest thing. Is like, I think our tempo and our pace and the way we play has changed drastically year over year, and we should be scoring a lot more goals than we are conceding. I think we're +2 right now. Last time I checked, and the for and against for goals. And so I think that number needs to be, +25. Like, I just, on an XG basis, we're killing it. On an actual basis, we're not. And further stat that I saw that you'll love, Collins, is if you just look at the second half of our performances, I think we're in 18th or 19th place in the league. So it hasn't been good. I'll end my rant there.
I put it more just the mentality of the players. You guys have to help me remember, which game was it where like Disasi was heading away everything? Him and Colwell were just playing ridiculous.
Man City.
Thank you. How can we have that kind of a performance and then just absolutely shit the bed against low tier teams? That's what I'm talking about when I talk about the mentality. You only do that when you play the big teams? No, that should be the expectation every single time. If you can play like that against arguably the top club in the world, you can do that. But you go to one of the lower teams and you can't put in performances like that. You can't give the same kind of dedication and stuff like that. That's an issue. That's you just trying to skate by. That's a mentality thing. I think, Colin's going back to what you were saying about, giving up goals late. Me personally, I don't think that's a physical fatigue thing. I think that's a mental fatigue thing. If you look at even the goal against, so the 2 goals against Burnley, the Cullen goal, yes, that was something out of nothing, but it looked like nobody really made an effort to even step up or try and do much on it. You look at the O'Shea goal, you had Noni marking, you had Enzo then trying to pick that up on a center back, which again, it could be a tactics thing. I'm not denying that. It could be an issue with tactics on that. But still, even when we look at corners, specifically corners, how many times do we completely miss the ball? Like just completely, or we look out of position. I think it was in the 15th minute when they got their first corner off of one of Jordy's like great saves, shot coming in off the left. Nobody from Chelsea made it off the ground. Nobody, but there were like 4 Burnley players off the ground. Everybody else was flat-footed. That to me is just like mentality. And they're like, oh, well, they're not going to score here, so I'm not even going to bother. That's what it comes off as. And we see that a lot. So how can we go from that City performance to something like this and be like, oh, it's a tactics thing? No, to me, that's not tactics. That's just other teams want it more and they give a shit. We only care about the big games. We don't care about the games against a Burnley or a Sheffield. If you set the bar that high, that's got to be the expectation, because you've just said we can play at this level against the best team in the world. You need to be able to do that game in and game out, regardless of who's out there.
I'm gonna keep going at this like a broken record here, but is that not a leadership issue? Is that not a management issue? And I want to focus on the word leadership there, because yes, Chilwell is out, Reece James is out, Thiago Silva not playing. Conor Gallagher is your captain. Matt, you mentioned earlier about handing the captain's armband to the sub to give to the next captain. We talked a couple weeks ago about how he's too busy talking to somebody pre-penalty to take the ball away from Raz to give to Cole Palmer, like Enzo did earlier in the year. So you've got a captain issue where there's no one setting that expectation. You've got no Roy Kent out there. Sorry, just binge Ted Lasso. But then from the manager's perspective as well, and I know Matt specifically is going to give me the same shit that he gave me last year about Graham Potter and us not scoring goals, that even though we're getting chances. It's the manager's job to set the expectation. You know, he can't go out there and defend. You're right, as you mentioned earlier, but he can set the expectation for his defenders. And if somebody like Badia Shield is shitting the bed for the 5th game in a row, Thiago Silva needs to be subbed on. Provide that leadership late in the game when the team is clearly mentally struggling. Malang, you know, and if it's an injury issue, you got Malang Sarr, who's been healthy all goddamn season, but you haven't given a squad 2 number yet. You have options. And I already mentioned the U23s. You got plenty of those guys. The manager is not setting the defensive expectations that he needs to. I understand that the attackers have grown. Cole Palmer has turned into a world-class player. Nico Jackson has turned into a formidable Premier League striker. Mudryk in the last couple of weeks has looked real good. But if you go back to the defense, we have regressed. And it's because there doesn't seem to be, as you guys have mentioned, a lack of focus. There doesn't seem to be any leadership back there. And nobody looks like they know where they're supposed to be at any given moment. It's kind of a free-for-all back there. That is on the manager. That expectation has to be set at the top and trickle down.
All I ask for is I've seen improvement out of our players. I think it was 5-6 weeks ago now, Collins. You went through the live. You're like, who has improved? And I think that has changed now since we had that discussion. That list of who's improved has changed, because I think we have seen some decent improvements out of our players, which I think means Poch has that ability. He has the ability to coach younger players and get better results out of them. I think if he has a little bit of time and a window to do it, because he hasn't bought a defender, not that I'm aware of at least. Was Disasi his? I can't remember.
Yep.
And he's turned out good. He's been the highlight of our defense, alongside of Malo Gusto. But you know, those 2 players, give him a chance to buy another center back pairing and then a left back, and we can get rid of one of the 2 left backs we have. I think we got a couple of the right pieces. I don't think we have the full lot yet.
And I think the one defensive leader you had, right, and this is where it gets into kind of a tricky situation, is you had Thiago Silva, right? You had one would argue, the leader of leaders, right? Somebody who just had respect coming out of every orifice, right? And now, because of something his wife said, he's been shut out by the team or by the manager, however you want to look at that. So how do you expect anybody else to lead when literally your leader is not even playing? You're not even giving him a shot to go out and play over a comment that his wife made. It puts you in a hard spot. So I think that's kind of a hindrance. And we can all agree Silva is, Father Time is catching up to Silva. We all knew it would. It does to all of us. It's catching up to him. We know it. But his leadership is still there. And if we're saying like, okay, you have a Thiago Silva, you have a leader. If we're talking about issues with leadership, right? Chilwell, Reece, Connor, maybe they're not the right ones to be wearing the armband. Well, you froze out arguably your best candidate. You froze him out. I haven't seen everything that I've wanted to out of Enzo as a leader, but that could just be me having I critique him. I critique him in a different light. Let's put it that way.
Yes,
I'm not
you do.
saying he's bad about anything. I critique him in a different light. So I haven't knowingly observed a lot of those things. But he's not always, I think, the most, he's probably more of like that quiet, silent type leader. He's not gonna like full on scream in your face, and he's not always gonna like give the effort of Connor, right? Just chasing things down, even if we're down 4-1, right? I think at sometimes, like a lot of us might do sometimes, if it's 4-1 in the 80th, you kind of pack it in, just say, all right, let's see what happens next week. But I think you have that person, if you did need to come in a Burnley match and you needed that leadership, you needed something like that because you took Connor off and now it's Enzo. You need somebody else to fill that. And I don't think in that situation, and at that point, I wouldn't have cared who got the armband. To me, I think you needed a Thiago Silva out there. You needed an actual certified leader out there, not just, all right, who's next in line to take the armband, right? It's kind of like a baton in a relay race at this point. All right, you get it. Now you get it. Now you get it. There's no kind of pecking order because everybody that wears it is pretty much out. But you have somebody sitting on your bench. Why not utilize him for that? Even if you don't think he can still play at the same level, it's not going to be any worse than Body Shield at this point. So throw him out there. Give yourself a solid defender and give yourself an actual leader out there.
Yeah, I miss him as like the floor general. I miss him yelling at people to get in the proper positions. Even if he couldn't get in the proper positions himself physically, he knew where he was supposed to be, and he knows where everyone else is supposed to be. It's kind of funny. I was trying to figure out when he got iced out, and I don't know if I fully picked it up. I think Crystal Palace is the last time he started, is what it looks like. And then it doesn't look like he started since then. I mean, the other thing you can argue is we've had pretty good form since the Palace match. We played City, we lost to Liverpool in the cup final, and then wins over Leeds, Newcastle, Leicester, draws to Brentford and Burnley. We've been decent since then. So I mean, I don't know if he's frozen out or not. I don't know if it has anything to do with his wife's commentary on social media. Some of it, I think, just might be we're doing what works, and we've been informed. So why change it back to what it was? It'd be interesting to find out if he does feature at all for the rest of the season. I don't know if he will or not. I have no clue, but I don't hate that idea either of bringing him on late match. Take Connor off and put Silva on and kind of just solidify things. I said this earlier, just kind of shore everything up. John Obi Mikel the situation, or Alfie Gilchrist the situation, just kind of give some stability to the team when you need it and when you have to hang on. Hanging on to matches is just as important of a skill as, or seeing off and killing matches is just as important of a skill as scoring goals or defending or doing anything else.
Right. Well, boys, we are pushing the hour here. There's one more thing I want to touch on. We did not have a man of the match poll this week. However, we do play Manchester United midweek here. So quick round of gun to your head. What happens in that match? Win, loss, draw? Matt, start with you.
What day is that match on?
Thursday.
I'm going to go with a win, 2-1.
Mason Mount winner. Pick the score. I don't care.
The Mason Mount own goal.
Be sweet.
Yeah, I'm going to go a draw. I don't remember the last time we beat Manchester United. It seems perfect. Mason Mount scoring this weekend that he'll probably start in this one as well.
Could be the kickstart he needed for his United career, because that's been hindered as well. And United seems to be just as big of a shit show as we are. So it's going to be a complete crab bag of a game. It's going to have some ups and downs. We're going to laugh. We're going to cry.
All right. Well, make sure to check us out. Oh boy, YouTube started up there. Make sure to check us out on social media, X, Facebook, Instagram, etc. We're at Flag Down Pod. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. We always appreciate any reviews and any feedback you can get from any of y'all. So before we close out here, Matt, what's your closing thought?
Benoit balls. Sums up his performance.
All right. Well, cheers.
Please don't edit that awkward silence out either.
If you know, you know.
All right. Cheers, boys.
Cheers.
Cheers.